shift gears just a little bit and talk about how does Scrum and Waterfall fit together. Here's a question, can they fit together? Are they two wholly separate things?
They separate, but they can work together.
So those here separate, here they could be together. What was yours?
I was saying if you have pieces that are big enough, probably break it to both.
Okay, so there's some way you can join them together. So let's talk about it real quick. So with this idea of Scrum, we have this iterative progress over time. We're getting better. We're constantly refining our menu. We're constantly doing that. We're constantly making our service catalog better. Here's the reality of what happens. In this example, our restaurant's going to open in 6 weeks. So guess what? We can't just keep iterating through the menu over and over and over again. We have a deadline. We have to meet that deadline. How are we going to do it? How are we going to match things up? That's where you can start talking about, let's start designing this around our waterfall. Let's break up these timelines. Kind of what you're saying, if they're in chunks, let's break these things up. So now we know, hey, it takes me 1 week to print, 1 week to distribute. And I know when I'm opening. I can back that up. I can start defining my timeline. Now we have 4 weeks to create the menu. So within this example, I can do 4 different versions of the menu before we have to go to print. I divided it up. I said, okay, at the end of this week, we're going to have something in front of the product owner. We're going to have something that could be shippable if we had to. I'm going to have it in front of them, have feedback, have direct feedback. That's your first cart passing through your deck. We got it in front of the customer. We didn't wait down here right before we went to print and they look at it and go, hey, you got a deep fryer on there. What are you doing? You know, we found that out up here week 1. We got it in front of them, immediately got that. But we still have this time base to know, okay, we only got 4 iterations through this. We got to get it good. We got to be done by this one. We still got to hit our print. We still got to hit our distribution. We still have these milestones, these timelines we have to hit. So this is how these things marry up together. We're going to have to go off and implement things. You're going to have to amend the service catalog. Is your company going to give you an endless timeline to do a service catalog? Are they going to let you keep going every 2 weeks and coming back with a new version and a new version and a new version? No, they're going to want it in a certain amount of time frame. And so we still need to match these things up. Yeah, hopefully. We still need to match these things up. We still need to match them to timelines. And this is where we start talking about the verses of, the best practices said we should do the following things. How are we actually going to get it done? Here's how we're actually getting it done. We're breaking it up into chunks that we can manage. We're having deliverables at the end. We're getting constant feedback. And we're still marching toward our deliverables and our milestones. So let's talk about if you're doing a bigger project. Who knows what CMDB stands for?
Configuration Management Database.
All right, up front was the loudest, so. So it's Configuration Management Database. Is that an easy project or a hard project? By the size, I can hear it. It's huge. It's massive. When we talk about CMDB and CMS, what we're saying is, I like to describe it as content and context. Content is what's all the things we have. What's all the servers, all the switches, all the databases, what's all our content that we have. Context is, how do these things relate to each other? This server is connected to this switch is connected to this router. That is not an easy thing to do. First, you got to know what you have, and then you got to start drawing the relationships to each other. That's not an easy thing to do. So what we want to do is break that up so we have some sort of manageable progress along the way. We don't want to just disappear, try to think, oh, we're going to do this in 6 months and get done 6 months later and go, yeah, that was huge. We don't actually have anything. We got a few lists, some lines drawn between them, but that's about all we got. No, you want to have some deliverable things along the way. And so we're going to break that up. And so we're taking this idea of a best practice that we should have a CMDB, we should know what these things are, and we're figuring out how to get them implemented within our environment. We're going to have versions along the way. Version 1, maybe an Excel sheet. Is it shippable? Yeah. Is it fantastic? No. But we still have something along the way. We've had a deliverable. We've met it. We're going to do CSI. Hey, how do we get better at this? Where are we? What do we need to do? That's our sprint retro. How do we get better? And we're going to plan the next one. Maybe within the CMDB, maybe we have multiple sources that none of them were authoritative. Well, we need to define which one's authoritative and start working your way through that. And so all along the way, we're marching through these iterations. We have milestones. We need to get it loaded into our ITSM tool by this date. We need to integrate it within change management by this date. And now we go to test. So now we know what we're marching toward. We had our iterations to get done with each one. We're getting constant feedback, and we still hit our targets at the end. So, it all sounds fantastic, though. Like, yeah, it's going to be super easy. Let's start doing it. Let's talk about some of the things you're going to run into. So one of the big ones you're going to run into, I call this initiative fatigue. So you're going to be like, we're doing IT service management, we're doing ITIL, we're doing all these other things. And all of us are going, I hadn't even got past when we were going to start doing security initiatives. You know, I'm still 6 initiatives behind you. So how do you organize these things and how do you keep them together? One of the things, I love this little diagram. It's simple, but it illustrates, well, it's not really very well. Imagine there's lines right there. What it shows is, oftentimes what leads to this initiative fatigue, as I call it, is the management level, us up here in management, we talk about it constantly. It's in our weekly meetings, it's right there, it's forefront, it's front brain every time we're having a conversation. When we get down here to operational, we're putting out fires, we're doing all these things. It's one of 100 emails in our inbox. The thing to keep in mind is it goes down, we got to communicate more. And almost always, it's going to take longer than management thinks or wants it will. And one of those big things is because that's front brain for management. That's what they're doing. We're trying to implement IT service management. We're going to do it through Agile. We're going to do all these things. Meanwhile, we still got to keep business going. And so, like I said, it ends up just one of the many things that trickle down to us in operations. Another big one you're going to run into is start Scrum. You're like, oh, it's great. We're going to work through these iterative progresses. You think I'm running all over these hurdles. So this is what we think it looks like. Here's what it's actually going to look like. Not this one. It's going to be hard. You're going to stumble. You're going to fall. It takes at least 4 sprints before you get it down. Most of us, it takes around 10. It takes at least 4 before you get it down. It's a different way of doing work. It's a different way of managing our teams. There's going to be stumbles along the way. The best advice I can give you is when you start working on Scrum, you're going to stumble, but don't let the things around the fringe slip. Don't slip your retro. Don't slip your planning. Don't think, oh, everybody knows what they need to do over the next 2 weeks, so I'll get my sprint plan totally done. I'll get it to them by Wednesday instead of Monday. Those things start eating out. It starts eroding the whole thing of what you're really trying to establish of, we got to have this done in 2 weeks. We got to have this shippable. Whenever you start eroding around the edge, you really start losing that. Most people start losing it around their sprint retro. Oh, we know how to get better. Oh, we've already had a meeting, we talked about it. We'll suck less this time. We'll do a lot better. You know, and so those things happen. You want to make sure you don't let those fringe things start sliding along. Another big one is, did we actually get there? Did we hit the mark? We said we were going to develop this. Did we actually get it done? One of the best tools I have found for this is, for all the tasks that we manage, I do done equals. That way, if you get a task and we work on a task, we all know what it means to be done. I don't know if I'll pick on developers. They're notorious for this, especially most ones I work with. You're like, okay, is that application done? Yeah. As soon as we send it to UAT, it's going to be good. You're like, no, that's not done. Done's after UAT. Done means I want it to the product. You know, I want it out to the customer. And so the way we fix a lot of that is, done equals deliver to the customer. And so whatever it takes for you to deliver that to the customer, that's UAT, that's development, whatever it takes along the way. But we now know that same definition of done equals. You know, done equals for the CMDB is we have all our known assets in there down to their 3rd level of relationships between each other. That's a high target, but we know what it is. Yeah.
What were some of the challenges you faced early on?
So early on, we faced challenges. Whenever we implemented Scrum, I'll unpack both of them because we almost have Scrum and then we have ITIL, so there's 2 different sets of challenges there. Whenever we started really, hey look, it's going ahead. Anyway, whenever we did Scrum, a lot of people didn't like tracking the tasks down to the level we had to track them to. Because a lot of us were left to kind of, hey, go deliver this thing, and it was kind of delivered on their own time. But now, to develop that sprint plan, I gotta know what you're working on. I gotta know the 20 things you're gonna get done this week or within these next 2 weeks. And a lot of people felt like that was additional oversight. They felt like, hey, you're not giving me the freedom, you're not letting me do these things. And so there was a lot of an education around that of saying, no, you get to pick. You're telling me the 20 things. I told you what's top priority. You just tell me what you're getting done. Now you told me. You told me at the beginning of the sprint. I got to know if we're going to get done at the end of the sprint. That's it. I'm not trying to track every time you come and go out of the office, all those things. So a lot of people, I guess, initially resist some of that added structure that needs around Scrum. Some of the challenges we had when we started implementing IT service management. So one of them was people understanding the terms, understanding what we were trying to do. So an education aspect of it. We also had challenges. There was a difference in management buy-in and management support. So they were supportive of the idea of doing IT service management until their initiatives came along and they wanted to get them done anyway. And so we ran into a lot of that. One of the campuses we developed it great, turned into a portfolio management policy. It started out as a service catalog, how to manage all these things. Looked fantastic. We all sat in meetings. We're like, it's a work of art. It's going to be great. CIO came along and said, I want to have this project. We're like, okay, let's go do this. No, just go do it. You're like, oh, okay. And so you actually have to follow the things you're putting in. Otherwise, you just undermine it right there at the beginning. It took us a long time to get that one back on track. So that's another sort of, I guess, challenge we ran into. I'll open it up. Anybody else facing any challenge? How many people are doing Scrum right now? Okay, so we got a few hands there. One of the things that I didn't mention there is Scrum is not just for development. You're here development, that's where it started out, but it's not. I mean, you saw what we did. We broke up work into chunks. We defined what we were going to do and gave it a deliverable. We can do that with any team. I did it with an infrastructure team. It worked out great because we were able to match it up with what the developers had to do. Hey, your dev system will be done on this day. We make sure, oh, look at that. We made sure they had to start development on this day, so we made sure in our sprint, their servers were ready. And they were ready to go. You know, so it matched up really well. It'll work with any team. How many people are doing IT service management? Okay, the majority of those. Any challenges you want to share or face? Not in an open room, I guess.
I said, how much time we got?
Fair enough. No, the things I give you with IT service management is address your pain points. Go there first. I use CMDB as an example, but you're not going to get a lot of buy-in from most management and definitely from your customers doing CMDB. That's not a front-facing thing. That's an infrastructure type thing. And so if your customers are complaining about calling the service desk and incidents, don't start with CMDB. Start with incident management. So start with where your pain points are. CMDB is almost going to be one of those things when you start it, you got to have it. It's huge, it's important. But whenever you go to your customer and be like, yeah, we're going to start this 6-month process to find out all the things we own and how they relate to each other. They're going to look at you, what have you been doing? How do you not know what you have? How do you not know how they relate to each other? So that's not the best one to start off with. So you got to think through which ones you're going to work with first. Yeah, so just hit these again. So limit the initiatives, see them all the way through the completion. If you're going to do something, if you're going to do a service catalog, finish the service catalog. Don't start a service catalog and let it, meander on for 8 months. Finish these things as they go through. Because a lot of what this fatigue comes from is we feel like we started one and we never finished. We started another one and we never finished. Success breeds success. So finish one, move on to the next one. Scrum, make sure you know that you're going to mess up the first few ones. So when you go to that first Scrum time and it goes, you have horrible problems, you don't think, oh man, we just can't do this. It's going to take a few iterations. Making progress, done equals, is huge and beneficial for me. That's also where the waterfall comes in. Did we meet these milestones? Did we meet these targets? Just a quick overview. So we talked about ITIL, IT Service Management. Remember, ITIL is the set of books. It's telling us to do best practice. That best practice teaches us how to do IT Service Management. Scrum is a way of dividing up work, and a way we get deliverables done in a set amount of time, and we get immediate feedback from our product owners. We walked through a couple projects. Scrum versus waterfall, they can fit together. You know your deadlines you got to meet. Match your sprints up to meet those timelines and meet those deadlines. And then we talk through the common challenges. Big things we see within service catalogs, I guess I can give you is you define, each one of you will have a different service catalog. There's different things, expert advice on audio visual may not apply to everything, but that may be a core thing that you offer. What you want to do is make sure you have the services and business terms. You don't want them to go there and then say like, oh, it's a horrible database, You want it in business terms. You want to say what the service offers, how they get it, and the service level in which they can expect it. So you told them what it is, how they can get it, and the expectations around it. Those are the big things. Advanced is if you have some repetitive things, go ahead and put a self-service portal around it, so that if access, account request is a top thing for you, make it an automated workflow where they just go and request it and get